Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of An Author's Kiss right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is the author, William Huhn. We're going to be talking about his poetry, Bachelor Holiday. He says that it is bittersweet, multidimensional journey through memory, mystery, and metamorphosis, where past love, psychological obsessions, and shifting weather unfold in a language as supple as it is dazzling. In a wonderful natural idiom, Hume emerges as someone like the avid of time, observing, tenderly participating in quiet miracles that transform all around us, if only our eyes were as keen as his. Here, stuff rests confidentially beside the dew-pearled spring, a four-line poem pulse with some vitality and seven-page meditations. Bachelor Holiday is a collection that leaves us not only grateful, but almost glad to be alive in this strange, beautiful havoc of a century. William is currently acclaimed award-winning writer, poetry and narrative of essays, the grandson of the Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder, Henrietta Seiberling, graduated from Vassar College with a degree in chemistry, and he works for a testing certification company overseeing the East Coast laboratories. But despite the science side of him, he really is a creative artist at heart. And that creativity is what we desperately need right now, isn't it? We need to kind of take ourselves out of the chaos that's going on and be able to see things in a more loving, nurturing way, because that's how we see clarity when we look back, isn't it? Welcome to the show, William.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I really appreciate being here.
So, poetry, how did that come about? Chemistry, that's very scientific, very detailed, very particular. Poetry is very freefall, allowing things to happen. It's the opposite end of that spectrum.
True. It's funny because actually the poetry was the first in that equation. Poetry was first, and the reason I went into chemistry was just for what you said. It seemed to be the opposite of poetry, and I wanted to make sure the poetry kept pure, and I wanted to make sure I could focus on that without having to think it's for anything to do with writing at all. It was for
Mm.
work, you see. And it's done me well. And it's very interesting because in the end, I found that there is some overlap. And even though I was really involved in chemistry as a means to chase the almighty dollar while
The roof over
also
the head.
pursuing, oh yes, while also pursuing my love, um, it turns out that I actually began to enjoy chemistry a lot. And in fact, they play off each other in a way. Not that the poetry has a lot of chemistry and it has a little bit, but it's just that they're both really problem-solving
Mm-hmm.
things in a huge way. They're both presenting problems that are super difficult to solve, and they take all your brain power. And I found there was a nice balance there.
You know, the word I'm always talking about in all of my shows and in my life is the word allow. And, you know, a lot when you're dealing with factual, scientific, baseline stuff, is that you do have to allow it to reveal itself to you. You do have to be investigative and inquisitive, and you can put the pieces together, but you're almost allowing out of head and trusting an instinct to see how it works together. That's much like the way poetry is as well, isn't it?
It certainly is. When a poem begins, just as if you have a chemistry problem you're trying to solve, or any other scientific problem, or any sort of life problem that one needs to unravel, it begins with an idea that you have to sort of tease out, and eventually it really takes you where it wants to take you.
Mm-hmm.
And once someone pointed out to me when I was discussing a poem, and I didn't think about it, but they said, I said, well, yeah, it's almost finished, and I've done this or that to it, and it seems to be taking. And they said you're talking about it as if it's its own life form,
It is.
as if it's taking you in its own direction.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't even occur to me, like I wasn't
Mm.
trying to do that. And I said, yes, well, that is kind of the feeling.
I've interviewed numerous authors through the years. I've been doing this 13 years. My brother's an author, so I've interviewed a lot. And I know the common thing is when you surrender, you have an idea, you have a gist of where you want to go, but you surrender to the writing and allow it to come through you, allow it to reveal itself. And if you dictate it, you're limiting it. If you allow it, it pours through you.
Yes, that's certainly true. The times when I find myself unable to write well, which or unable to write at all, I should say, because writing well is writing, and just putting words on a page is not writing. It's when I have just so much on my mind from other worldly concerns that it's kind of putting up a block. So I can find myself constructing the writing and constructing the sentences, but it's just not alive because I'm not allowing the life of the words to pour through.
Hmm.
And it's not that um, I wish to not allow it, but a part of me that is my own self, my own human self, is somehow blocking it, and I'm not letting the spirit of the writing and the art come through, which is just the spirit of art and language and our own human spirit.
Hmm. And that's how it's meant to come through. It is that surrender to your inner self, the heart, soul, and spirit of you. And, the intellect kind of understands where you need to take it, or the intellect understands how to construct it in a way. But if you don't allow kind of the soul, heart, and spirit to be a part of the equation, then it is just words on a page. We begin to feel it when we know somebody's poured their heart and soul into it. When we read it in a spirited manner, then the connection is made.
Yes, and the spirit as well depends on our human connection,
Hmm.
ironically, because um, it's not so much that it's a human spirit. It doesn't seem to be in a way, but it does and it doesn't. But it also depends on our human embrace of the spirit
Yes.
and our
Yes.
human touch and our human connection. It's one reason I'm not really too worried about AI when it comes to art,
Hmm.
and people ask me this all the time, is because no matter what, it's still artificial intelligence. Don't
Hmm.
forget, it's artificial. It's gonna, if you have the poet like Oscar Wilde or any poet who's just been through terrible circumstances in their lives,
Yes.
and you read their work, part of that circumstance, not
Mm.
just you're knowing it, but it actually connects to the work. And it's so important to allow that, back to that wonderful word choice, to allow that connection to embrace the writing. And you can't really do that artificially. It just can't. It's not
No, I
possible.
mean, AI is very, very eloquent and it is human collectiveness, right? So, and it just kind of puts it in a format that it thinks you want it to have. But when we read something that makes us feel, we want to feel to think, not think to feel. When we actually feel something, then the thoughts come up inside of us, the relatability, the I did not know, or the pain and the suffering somebody went through, or the joy of
Yes.
what it's all about. But we have to be willing to feel it. And I feel that for so long now, people have been suppressing feelings, and this is what's causing this combustion at the present moment. Um, and we need to understand our emotions need to be spent, not to be emotional about them, but our emotions need to be spent. And when you read something that allows you to express yourself, to feel something that you didn't even know that was inside of you, it's kind of that permission and that freedom to feel something for yourself that maybe you were suppressing.
Yes, and the writing works as a channel to bring that
Mm-hmm.
out, whether you're the composer or the reader. I mean, to me, reading properly is in itself a great art. And Walt Whitman said, Walt Whitman, I forget the exact quote, but he actually said, if to paraphrase, if you're reading me now, then you are a poet. You are
Mm,
the poet on the hill reading me now. I'll have to look that up. But a friend of mine who I recommended Walt Whitman came back to me, and he said, and he was a great person who loved music and art and everything, but he'd never gotten too into quote unquote into poetry. But and he started with Walt Whitman, and he just was completely blown away. Suddenly, poetry was on his radar, and then he read that, and he said, I feel that I am a poet just reading Walt Whitman.
yes.
So wonderful.
The ignition of the igniting of the heart and soul, the permission to feel something that isn't mainstream and that
Yeah.
allows you to kind of feel something else inside of you that very often is just taboo or we don't realize that we need to feel it. And that's what art does. It moves us, it connects with us, it resonates with us, it allows us to feel something inside of us that we've either suppressed, ignored, or didn't realize that was there. It's pushing those buttons, allowing us to feel something in a way that is connecting to ourselves.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful feeling when you meet a new perspective, um, like Whitman or any of the poets or prose
Mm-hmm.
writers, because you don't as you said, you never saw it
Right?
before, and suddenly it's there, and as a whole way of feeling that you didn't come across before. It's not as though you didn't necessarily know it's there, because oddly enough, it almost feels like it was there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you just hadn't
Out of
experienced
reach.
it. Yes, you hadn't, right, you hadn't reached in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I'm very much a rhythmic creature. I believe everything is rhythm and rhyme in whatever we do. Our blood, our oxygen, our chi, our energy, everything has to be in flow. It has to be in movement, and we ourselves need to be in movement. And that means our thought and our expression and our exploration needs to constantly be in flow. And poetry is a thing that takes you on a kind of rhythmic ride that allows you to see things and expand on things that you hadn't maybe thought about, or even just connecting to your own rhythm and rhyme, that you start feeling a flow that, you were going linear and flat and not getting anywhere. And then suddenly, through this, it ignites that rhythm inside of you, and you realize that everything is about movement and flow.
Yeah, and what to me is the most satisfying about my readership is when I meet somebody who didn't really read poetry much,
Mm-hmm.
and I say, well, you really ought to try this. And try, I'll give them a copy of my book, or they'll buy one. A friend of mine who say would buy it just because they want to buy their friend's book,
Mm-hmm.
and they will and then they'll start reading it, and I'll say, just give it a try and just see, and then they come back and they say, oh my God. And that to me is the most satisfying thing, because I feel that I've opened a window for them.
Yeah.
And the window is people, as you know, they sort of go through life and they do the right thing, and in life they connect the dots, and I like to feel that the poetry, and that's what my poetry aims to do, is to offer something that's outside, so that will infuse their lives with more meaning, and at the same time enhance the regular sort of connect the dots aspect of life. But suddenly and I don't mean meaning in the sense of I mean I do in a way, but in the sense of okay, well, life won't have meaning otherwise. I mean, it
Right.
it, it enhances the meaning, and
Yes.
it gives you
Highlights it.
exactly highlights the meaning, and it shows it makes life so much richer. It's rich. It's more poetry, just like music. It makes art. It makes life so rich that in a way I can't fathom life without it
Right.
myself. And I know people that just read poetry, don't write it. They're the same way. They cannot
Mm.
fathom their lives without poetry. And I always urge people, just give it a try. Open a book of poetry. Keats anyone, Wallace Stevens, just anyone, and don't let it befuddle you. Just
Yeah.
try to just line by line get it as much as you can, and just that act, you'll come away feeling like, huh, and you
Hmm.
look at the
Hmm.
sky in a different light. You'll see people around you in a different light, and that's such an important thing. It's one of the most things we can do, and we can be offered in life, is to look at life a little deeper, look at life a little more richly. And I think that poetry offers that. It's a gift. We it's so important to take advantage of that.
The parallel of poetry and science is that it is about opening up. What are the possibilities? How to see something differently, have a better understanding. What is
Yeah.
it revealing? It's all about discovery. And of course, this network is called Self Discovery Wisdom. That wisdom
Yeah.
is ready to be downloaded any time as soon as you open up those channels, that knowingness. I call it the knowingness where I feel the soul has the knowingness and it gives it to your heart in truth. It gives it to your spirit in action for your mind to know what it needs to know in clarity when it needs to know it. And you trust it. You don't need to verify, validate, or anything. It just is. And when you do that for your poetry and you know it just is, that line is right. Does it make sense right now? Maybe with the next line it will, but the line is right. And it's the
Right.
same with science or anything else, is that when you discover it, I may not quite comprehend what I've just discovered, but I know it to be right. And now the investigation of why it's right reveals.
Yeah, that's quite true. The poetry, line by line, I keep whittling it away until, quite right, it becomes the right line.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way to put it. All the poems in Bachelor Holiday, my book, are is I wouldn't change a line even now, after it's been a year or so since I've
No
sent
second guessing.
right.
It
There's
just
none.
is.
There's none. And there's some, I up to the very last minute before publication, a couple of small tweaks that just hit me suddenly.
Mhm.
But no, and it's not because I think it's right, or it's because the poem tells me this is what you were looking for, this is what you were aiming
Yes.
at, and this is right, and you can't change it. Any A comma misplaced would be to mar it.
Hmm.
You'd
Hmm.
still be able to see perhaps what the poem's all about, but and you'd still see the spirit of it, but it wouldn't come through quite as strongly if you changed so much as a comma.
This is why we do have to be careful whenever we go to editors, because they've got a formula and they don't realize that changing a comma or a full stop or one word can change the entire rhythm of what's being written. And I understand that grammar and things like this, when it comes to poetry, that's different, but any other writing needs to be there. But, it seems to be we have an awful lot of publishers these days that follow a zero template and everybody's got to fit into that without actually understanding the rhythm of the writing, understanding the person who's writing it. What is their message they're trying to get off? And I feel that if they're not connecting with the author, then how can they represent the work?
Yeah, I think that's right. Editors are kind of, they're a blessing and a bane.
Mhm.
I've had, fortunately, my editor for this book from Blazebox Books, he was he didn't change anything, not a single word, not a single comma, and he let me do the changes I made towards the end, a couple of little things. He let me do those very, very hands off. He let me do most of the design of the book. He did it, but he gave me sort of the overall pictorial design. I was able to choose the
It's your
cover.
vision. It should be your design.
Yes,
It's,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
And he's very good that way. Not all publishers are that
No,
way.
no, they're
Um,
not.
and I have had prose. I have had some poetry editors who wanted to change a line. One time actually, I liked what they said. They wanted me to drop a single word, a one syllable word up, as used as a particle, and they were actually right. It was actually helped it, and that's the only time. But everything else, when people have wanted to change it, I've argued with them to the mat. to
I don't get it. You've got to
I'm
get it.
not going to do it.
Yeah.
I to the point where I said I'm not. And one time, a magazine called Fugue published a prose piece, and they wanted to drop the last line. And it's so difficult to get things published. And
Yes.
and he wanted to drop the last line, which my editor at the time, my mother at the time was, she edited all my stuff, and she was English former English teacher, and she was just brilliant person, Mary Huhn. But she loved the last line. It was a quote. One of the characters were saying something. It was just a perfect way to end it. And this one editor was just adamant about dropping this last line. And I said, well, I argue with him about it a little bit. And then he said, look, if you don't drop it, we're not publishing it. And I let him do it. I let him drop it, but I, of course, will put it back because it was just, I would have rather had them
Yeah.
run the piece as was, but it definitely knocked it down a notch in my view. But
And also, why?
yeah,
Why they say, is it all about, oh, you're only allowed so many words in that column and that's it? And it's all about numbers. It's not about the art, and this is the
yeah,
thing about anybody that is a writing, a novel, a book, or poetry, whatever it is you're writing. You must align yourself with people who get it, who get who you are, and what it is you're trying to do, because then they truly represent you. But we've also got to understand that you're up people that are number crunchers, and like that extra line might have cost a few extra dollars. And so therefore forget it, even though it kind of took
yeah.
away, you know, the summary or the conclusion of it. And it's, if they're
Yeah.
not artists themselves or understand artists, how can they represent?
Well, in this case, I think it wasn't, I think he was an artist, a little too much so, actually, because he also was a publisher of narrative essays. So I don't think it was a line count thing. I think he just had it. I think he liked the piece for different reasons than did or than I wrote it for. I think he liked certain aspects of it looking back. And I think
But
he just,
but honor the author.
right, he didn't honor the other. He had
Yes.
his own vision. And that's
Yes.
a good editor does not do that. I
Yeah.
editor at Pembroke magazine. He made a lot of suggestions on a prose piece that I had in that magazine, and he made wonderful suggestions. And I agree with every single one of them. He made about 4 or 5 suggestions,
And they were
and
constructive.
they're constructive, and none of them interfered with my vision.
Hmm.
And he also, I don't know if he was an author himself, I just don't really know, but he was just such a great editor. He was able to bring out my vision while not putting his over top of it,
You're right.
you know.
Yes. And that's the thing, is you need to represent. And there's an awful lot of people out there that go, I'm not a writer, but I just love to write poetry. Nobody will ever publish my book, or nobody with this and that. And it's like you're doing a disservice to the people who need to read it, who people who at that moment it might be the light bulb, or it might be a line that comforts them, it might be a reveal. And we need to follow that, and let you, we're inclined to judge and be our own judge and jury of what society will accept from us or not. Did you go through any of that? Like, who am I doing this for? Will anybody read it? Should I do it? I'm really, I'm on the different side of the
Uh,
scale there. Or is it something, no, I have to?
That's a very good question. Well, yes, I'm on the more I have to because
Mm,
the writing is I don't necessarily do it while thinking of who's going to read this or whether I mean I think it will touch them, but again, it goes back to the poem kind of having to have itself written. It's kind of a fire inside me. So I'd be writing poetry if I was on a desert island type of thing.
yeah.
But I do, of course, want it to be read, and I do think that the people who would take the time graciously to read it would very, very much enjoy it. And in a way, I'm also writing for them and for people
Mm,
who would read it because but it's as if the poem itself wants to touch others, not necessarily that I personally want to touch others through the poetry, you see.
right. Right. Let it speak to them how they hear it.
Exactly, and it
Yeah.
goes back to a friend of mine who's a guitar player. As you maybe read in my bio, I also play bluegrass old time fiddle,
Yes.
and
Lovely bluegrass.
yeah, it's just it's great. I just
Hmm.
love playing the fiddle, and it's my friend, a guitar player, was we always had this little thing going back and forth because he cannot play guitar. He has trouble even practicing without knowing he's going to have an audience next weekend, or
Mm.
going to
It
he's
feeds off other
playing,
people's energy.
feeds off it.
Yeah.
Whereas I would still love just to play the fiddle in a room by myself and
Hmm.
enjoy doing it. And I also love that part of it too, but
Hmm.
I can do it more just
You're
to
regenerating your own energy.
my own energy, which then pours out to other
Yeah.
people, and which I'm grateful for,
Hmm. And all different types of artists out there. But why the title? Why Bachelor Holiday?
That's a very interesting story, Sarah. So I was looking for a title, and I had for the book, I had a publisher in mind because he published some of my poems in his he has an online website, and he also has a sort of an offshoot of his press, Blazevox Books. And he wrote back when he published a couple of my poems. He said, your stuff is great. And I sort of noted, oh, well, you have a press. And of course, I thought it was going to take me 100 send outs like it does normally for any even a poem. I've had award-winning essays that were rejected by 125 magazines, and then they won awards, and I had uh, I've had two poems on the very popular website Verse Daily. One's
Hmm.
called Expedition, and one's called Ghost Church. Expedition, which I consider one of my best poems, um, that poem was just rejected all over the place, and then it got taken by Verse Daily. It's been reprinted in newspapers. I mean, it's
Mm.
this hugely popular poem. So I assumed that that's what was going to happen with the whole manuscript. But luckily, this one editor, he came out and said, your stuff is so great, and that was the only person I sent it to.
Hmm.
I meanwhile did send it to one contest that would have published as a book, which I didn't win the contest, but I sent it to him, and he loved it, and so I put the manuscript together in response to his saying he loves my poetry, and I was trying to get I was getting all poems from everywhere, all the magazines I published them in. I was digging through my old college poetry, trying to find some good ones to sort of and I did find some good ones, and I got a full manuscript together, and I was trying to find a title, and I came up with some, funny titles. One was called Running. What was it called? Stone Running was one of them, which is kind of cool, but it's a
Hmm.
little heavy.
Yeah.
Stone. It's kind of it doesn't sound just
Weighs you
like
down a bit.
yeah, it sounds like a throwaway title, like one you
Yeah.
thought of, but
Hmm.
no. And then Bachelor Holiday came because my sister, have you ever seen the movie American Beauty?
Yes. God,
Yeah,
years ago, 90s
years
movie,
ago.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yes, American Beauty. So Alan Ball, who wrote that movie, he also wrote the series 6 Feet Under. That was
Hmm.
his brainchild, which is also really it's one of the innovations of the series,
Hmm.
the you know um, online or cable series. He sort of that was almost he almost invented it. I mean, they were brand new back then. Of course, there was other series, but
Hmm.
he kind of really worked up that format, and
Right.
very innovative. Alan Ball. Now he was living in New York City, and I was there too. My sister was there, and she knew him through the advertising world. My sister, Mary Huhn, she's retired now, but she retired to raise her son, her adopted son. But she was a writer for the New York Post, a music writer. She had a great following and everything. She interviewed Yoko Ono and everything. She knew Alan Ball through the advertising world before she got into the New York Post world. and he was nobody. He was a little playwright, do the off Broadway plays, and he was struggling and everything. And just before he got discovered, he wrote this one play that was again, it was a one act, a one long act, but it was a one act play, and it was about these three guys in an apartment, and they were it's just the whole their day was what it was called. And my sister named it. She said, "Well, you ought to call that Bachelor Holiday, right?" And I thought, wow, that's a great title. And then I didn't think of it again. So when I was trying to think of a title, and I told Mary, hey, I'm stuck on this title, and she didn't like Stone Running either, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And I said, I wish I could call it Bachelor Holiday because I knew looking at the book that it would fit perfectly.
Hmm.
And she said, oh, you can. And I said, well, what do you mean you used it? And she says, no, there's no copyrights on titles,
Hmm.
and they're not trademarked or copywritten or anything. And I looked at it, and I looked at the book as a whole, and I looked at the poems that touch on it, that touch on the title, and as a the whole sweep of the book, and it just fit perfectly. And there you have it. Bachelor
Right.
Holiday became it, and it has this great story now attached to it. And
Hmm.
Alan Ball, by the way, it's a great story, right? And
Hmm.
he became so famous that it's Mary's. Excuse me. She was in touch with him for a little while, but she's not so much anymore. Even though they were very good friends, and we were friends too. I mean, I knew him. We used to go to breakfast together and stuff, the three of us. But I'm dying to get him a copy of it. So I will one day do that somehow.
Just one day it will be right, and you're off you go to the post office. There you go.
Yeah, if I can, I have to track him down, but I'll do it.
You talk about his and his struggling, and everybody is finding their way. I believe in art chooses us. I think we're all born with a gift, and our discovery is to discover what that gift is. How to perfect it in a way we can be a soloist, and then how do we join an orchestra, and transcend together. But it's all that discovery of what the gift is. And we may discover, one gift that later on leads to another gift. And yes, it can be a struggle, but everybody feels that you have to be a struggling artist in order to get somewhere. And it's no, you're a discovering artist. You're in discovery of who you are and what it is you're doing and who relates to it. Do people see what it is you're doing? So I think it's more about the discovery of self as an artist that
Yeah,
other people are discovering at the same time. And life is a struggle. Come on. It has its ups
sure.
and downs. Doesn't You don't have to suffer. That's a choice, but it's a struggle. And I think that maybe we should look at artists as the discovering artist rather than the struggling artist, because who doesn't
Yeah,
struggle at whatever they're doing?
yeah, I really like that idea. The discovering artist, because it is true. I mean, you're struggling to find your voice, but it's
Hmm.
struggling is not really the right word, is it? Now, you
No.
could say struggling in terms of economics,
Yes, of course.
but of course that's a different thing, and hence why I went into chemistry because we when I grew up, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so I vowed I am not going to I'm not gonna
Jeopardize the roof over the head.
no, that's it. I'm going to be able
No
to eat.
starving artists for you.
No, you can't. And there's time. I went to Europe, as you may know. I went to Europe for a year and made a living by playing my violin,
Hmm.
um, in the walk streets and the cafes and in the bistros and stuff like that, which
What
was
wonderful
fantastic.
material for
Oh my
poems.
God, it was incredible. Yeah, just I was so happy, so free. It's such a
Yes.
wonderful experience. I will never. I got the wanderlust out of me, and
Hmm.
I made enough money to easily get by. So it wasn't, but it was still I didn't have a future in mind. I had to
It
then
was a
come back
passion that needed to be spent.
exactly, and I had to get that out of my system, and but also it really enabled me to develop the foundation of my writing because I'd write all day and then go out and play at night. So it really gave me the foundation which I needed in terms of
Hmm.
developing my art. But again, that was kind of the discovery.
Hmm.
I was discovering how deep the art went. I was putting the stakes down. I was discovering where they went. I was discovering what it meant to me to write, and I discovered that it meant more than anything. So even then, yeah, it wasn't struggling. You're discovering it, and when
Mm.
you discover you're an artist, the whole world opens up. It
Yes.
it just yeah. I mean I was kind of in high school. I was kind of a I was okay popular and stuff like that, but I was kind of I felt as though I was kind of shifting in the wind.
Hmm.
And then when I was in 10th or 11th grade and I began writing poetry. It wasn't very good poetry, but it was poetry, and I knew there was something there. I suddenly felt as though I was a person, and I
Mm.
didn't care so much what people thought of me and whatnot. And because of that, people started giving me more traction as a human being.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it
you
was
were
a time.
revealing your own self by listening to your own inner voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so by discovering poetry, I was able to discover my own self,
Yes.
and people were able to discover me.
Exactly. As it should be.
Yes,
I call uh, we live so much by societal dictation. So many likes, you've got to look this way, you've got to make this amount of money. Everything is about this is what you've got to be seen and heard. And then we find out we've got it all, but we're utterly miserable. Nothing is meaningful. The heart and soul is this completely depleted. And sometimes the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and sometimes it's the cosmic two by four that comes along and says,
right.
no, you're not designed for that. And we have to take a different path. And that could be a struggle in looking for a new path and discovering ourselves. But the moment we let go of the societal expectation of should, and start listening to the inner voice of you are and explore who we are and our limits, what we're really meant to do, where we're really meant to fly, and allow that to happen, then we step into ourselves so comfortably, so blissfully, and so peacefully that that's where the creativity starts pouring out. And people can take us or leave us because we're no longer trying to fit in. We simply are.
Yes, and that also goes the same way with the readers or the
Mm-hmm.
people that are listening to music or reading the poetry or the novel or participating in some way or going to a museum. Um, that also ignites the passion. That
Yes.
also turns that person into someone who's going to be more grounded and also more in the wind.
Yeah.
They're just going to be someone that who trusts themselves more, and really they will go down a path of self-discovery as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that will, in a way, it's very interesting because what you're saying, we're talking about discovery
Mm.
and struggle. In a way, art helps you replace the struggle with discovery.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Reveal.
yeah, and that is so
Yeah.
important for people. It is so important.
Hmm.
And especially nowadays when, we have our electronics, which are
Hmm.
so dominating, we don't want to think back on our lives and think we spent all our time just pursuing these superficial channels,
Yeah.
and we missed the chance to really explore what it is to be alive. And poetry and art explores that and shows you that. And that's what I strive for in Bachelor Holiday.
Hmm.
I really there's one poem called "The Sacred Terror" that goes along that line of you face life in a very direct way, and it's a little fearful,
Hmm.
but it's what in the end makes you less afraid, and
Yes.
in the end makes you perceive more the beauty of life.
Yeah. It's the discovery of courage, of strength, of abilities, of desire, of passion, of commitment, of purpose. All of those steps that we take in that discovery, it makes us who we are and where we really embrace what it is we're here to do. And then step out in that without apology and in truth of who we are. And it's if we're not seen, we're not seen. If we're seen, that's great. There's no need to prove yourself, no need to validate. You are self validated. You don't need to have validation from other people. However, if they see you and they see a reflection inside themselves because of what they see in you or in your work, then what you've done is become that mirror to show the beautiful essence of who they are. And you set them on their road of discovery.
Yes, and that brings us to a very interesting question that often comes up about poetry. People think, and it's true in a way, that it's up for interpretation, that a
Mm-hmm.
poem can mean anything to anyone. And I would say, uh, now that we've kind of gotten to that question, it can and it can't. So I'd say it can mean, I wouldn't say it can mean anything to anyone. It can mean different things to different people.
Yes.
So we
Meet
add
you where
our,
you're at.
yeah, we add our experience to it,
Yes.
but you can't say a poem about a tea kettle is about snow falling, you know. There is certain things, but the tea kettle
Parameters.
itself can mean different things.
Yeah. Yes. And the interpretation is, I think, the reflection of what we see within ourselves, the identification that we
Hmm.
see within ourselves. But if the poem or it doesn't have a foundation, doesn't have a rooting, then that can be misconstrued completely. But when it has a rooting and a substance to it, it is flexible. The poem is flexible, but it doesn't break and it doesn't become something else. What it does is it broadens that discovery for other people to see it from all sides and in a different way.
That's right. So if you read a poem, say you talk about flexible, if you read say Robert Frost's poem about the boys swinging on the the pine trees.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he like the boys swinging on the trees. I forget the. Do you remember the lines by chance?
No, I'm
When
afraid I
when
don't.
I see I like to think a boy's been swinging them is one of the lines, but they're not pine trees. But it'll come to me in a minute. But
Mm-hmm.
that would mean a lot more to a boy who was brought up in, or a lot different to a boy
Yeah.
who was brought up in New England, say, than someone
Mm-hmm.
who read it who lives in California and who's lives near, in an arid sort of desert town, you
But
know.
at the same time, it's showing range. As the
Right.
swing goes from one
Yes.
side to the other, it's showing range, so the interpretation can be within that range.
Right. And so the person, and it wouldn't necessarily mean more or less to the person. It would just be a
Just
different thing, but
reflective of where they're at.
it has
Yeah.
that range.
hmm Yeah.
So I
And
wish I
you know
could say
this
I know the lines.
when it comes into your head,
It's
let
going to come
just
in. I'm
keep
going to
it. It
pop them
will.
out.
When we
Yeah.
don't talk about it, it will. I'm always saying to people to have a podcast party and listen to a podcast, take notes, glass of wine, listen to it, have a conversation afterwards, because this person got this from it, that person got that from it, this person, this was a reveal. Now you share all that information, and look what you've got. A mountain
Yes.
of information that you are seeing it here because that's the relatability. They're there. And it's like, oh, suddenly we've got a bigger picture. And I think it's even having discussion over poetry. This is what it meant to me. That's why people have book clubs. This is what it means to me. I think one of the things we need to do is open up the conversation more and give somebody a baseline, like a poem, where people read it, absorb it, feel it before they jump in to what it means to them, digest it, and then talk about what they've got from it. And then as other people reveal, it is just expansion upon expansion. But we need desperately to have conversation and connection and the ability to see things at a bigger stratosphere rather than a limited full stop, because that's kind of where we've got ourselves into trouble as a human race. And we need to expand that inquisitiveness and awareness and consciousness. And we get that through conversation.
Yeah, it sounds to me as though that those ideas are partly your inspiration for these podcasts, these wonderful
Mm-hmm.
podcasts of yours. No,
Yes.
and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a great. It's so inspiring to hear this. It's very inspiring that you would have me on and consider me part of that vision. It's really a wonderful thing, Sarah, and I hope you don't mind my putting on you on the spot. Do you mind just my asking what inspired you to begin this series?
Actually, I was coming out of a dark time where I had backed a quantum electric motor, um, and it got stolen. The people that were financing it took off with it and ended up being
Mm.
bankrupt, living out of my car. And then it was like, I have no idea where I'm meant to go now because I was so absolutely sure that this motor was meant to be something. I'm not an engineer, but I just understood what it needed to do. In
Yeah.
the end, it became the muse for something else.
Hmm.
With the gentleman who had developed it, and he ended up doing something with Microsoft. But starting again in your 50s, right? With all your money gone, all your security gone, is a little bit shaky. And I wrote, I do suffer from depression. Part of it is a disease. I have fibromyalgia, which, it goes. And of course, if things are down, it can exaggerate that. And I wrote an article because I have to be proactive during that time. And somebody read that article and looked at my site because I'm a true colors coach and personality identifier. And she said, would you like to be on my podcast network? And I said, what's a podcast? This was back in 2012. I didn't even know what one
Wow.
was. I didn't have the money to join, but somebody spotted me the first month. I didn't even know how the other months came about because I could hardly afford rent, but I got the bug and it was live for 13 months until I started my own. And just hearing other people's stories of their own self-discovery, of revealing who they are through tragedy or through struggle or through the heavy journey that they had to take to reveal who they are today in doing what they're doing today and shedding light on the path for others to travel with their wisdom became something that became quite a calling and intoxicating. So personally, I've done about 3,000 shows. And every time I get to meet people like yourself, that you've stepped into your own self discovery and you're sharing your illumination that will shed light on somebody else's path that's needing light.
Oh, that's a great story. Wow. Yeah, so it took that. So this is you consider this is your calling at this point.
I consider that everything I've ever done has led me up to this. Yes.
Yeah. Because that's very interesting, because that's where it's as though that had to happen to you. Sadly
Yeah.
enough, it had
Yeah,
to
the
happen to
cosmic
you.
two by four.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot things like that have happened with me with without getting too much into my history, but with each individual poem, a lot of them have some very dark times
Hmm.
preceding them, and I could not have gone through them without.
Yes.
I could not have written the poem without going through that.
Exactly.
So it's
Or
it,
nor would
it
it have had the substance of the depth or the reveal, the light, had you not gone through them.
no, exactly. So you really need to. You
Yes.
really need and also the truth is everyone goes through things.
Hmm.
Everyone.
Hmm.
No matter how much money you have,
Yep.
no matter how much human beings
That's
will
part of
go
our
through things.
journey.
Yes, I tell my son, who's 8 now, I don't say, life is horrible or anything like that, but I say, you're going to, at times in your life, when I'm teaching him things, I'm
Hmm.
teaching him, and I do teach him about poetry and music, and I say, one of the important things about this, about art and music, is that you can rely these will help you through
Yeah.
times. There's going to be times. I know it seems like there's not, and hopefully you'll have very few dark times like that. But there will be times, and you'll always be able to count on these things to help you through them. You can count on people that
But
you
you're a
love.
living example for him. You see, you're
Yeah.
not just telling him it and not doing it. In your own self discovery of what your art, what your message, what your gift is, you're showing him and, in a sense, giving him permission to be himself and what his gift is. He's in discovery of what that is. Right.
Yes.
And he may choose many different things on that road of discovery, but he's seeing a father who honored himself in following that path, in committing to that path. And so it's like, but my dad lives his truth.
Yeah.
And I must always live my truth. I can explore, and maybe something doesn't work for me, and I can walk away from it. But I must always come to the core of my truth. And your truth is your poetry, is your music. That's one of the reasons I love interviewing musicians. They are living from the soul, heart, and spirit of their core, right? And so with you, with music and your poetry, you're living from your core. That's already an example to him and how to live. And it's an example to other people. You've got your sensible hat on, bread and butter chemistry, right? Put
Yes.
the roof over the head, but you've got your passion, desire, and calling on the other side of where your heart and soul is. And that is already a wonder. So many people talk to their children about you must, you this or that. But again, it's that outside expectation, and they're not living it, but you're living it. So you're already being a wonderful example.
Yeah, the question really becomes how much of it will stick, and I hope it does a lot. And he's a great boy, and he's very receptive. He loves making dioramas. He's got an incredible artistic sense himself. It's more visual. But yeah, that's a question. But yes, I hope to be I hope I am a good example for him.
And the
And
beauty of watching a child grow up when you are now aligned with yourself. I have grandchildren, four and two, with another one on the way in 2 months. And
congratulations.
so watching them grow, watching them in their discovery, I'm not responsible 24/7 for them. I can take that hat off.
Oh, I know.
2 days a week, I look after them, and
Oh, that's
certain
nice.
times at weekends and things. I'm there in that discovery of who they are. The little one has Down syndrome. And so we can't
Oh,
measure
yeah.
him with anyone else. We measure him against himself, of what he's
Yes.
achieving now. This little one with music and drums, unbelievable. The moment he hears drums, he's both hands playing, he's boogieing, he's
Oh,
shaking.
nice. The
Like
2-year-old,
music is his thing. That's his
the
language.
2-year-old.
He's two.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Where the other one is more engineering minded, which both his father and grandfather are, and he is meticulous about his cars and lines and going on the ferry, and very, very particular in how he plays and the order that it needs to be in. So one is
Yeah.
completely forget about go to the wind, and the other one is like, I like the order of things. So
Yes.
it's very interesting to watch them grow. But they will learn from their parents one thing, but from their grandma, they will learn is just be your truth. It's okay.
Yes, and they'll be able to look at your podcast too. You
Yes,
know.
when they get
So,
older, yeah.
yes, that's a great thing. Um, well, first of all, I just want to say that it's so wonderful to hear how accepting you are of your children, of your grandchildren. Um, excuse me one second. Sorry, that was actually I I heard my daughter knocking on the French door.
It's okay.
So
These are very
she
organic
knew
conversations.
she knew we were talking about her.
Right,
Um,
exactly. The antenna went up.
but
Actually, the
it,
the
it,
the
it yeah, good.
no, it is a little plug of my own. Last year, I produced a book called Our Forgotten Children.
Oh,
And it's
wonderful.
15 people that contributed. I was one in the contributing a chapter around the raising of our children and how the system is wrong and how it's not paying attention, how we do not look at the essence of our children and nurture who they are instead of demanding they fit into some sort of box or program. And so that was done by passion and love to bring about awareness, because everything I'm doing is bringing about awareness, right? Um,
Yes.
and so, the thing about our children, I have another genre called Raising Our Gifted Children. They are gifts. And the more we nurture them in the gift that they are, and allow them to be, and giving them structure and rooting and security in their exploration, the better we're going to have as a human race down the road. So I think the art of whether it's poetry, music, dance, whatever it is, we must let our children find that expression, because it is a discovery into themselves of who they are and how they express themselves artistically, even if it's in science.
Yes, and that is particularly important when it comes to special needs children.
Yes.
So your your grandson?
grandson. All gonna
Grandson,
have
yes.
three grandboys.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you'll have your hands full 3 days,
I
2 days a week, right?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Um,
Already do 2 days a week with the two of them. And when there's a third one, yes, it's going to be interesting. But, and, I came to grandmahood later in life. I was 66 with the first one. So I had to wait quite a while. But at the same time, it's just I'm in a really good place now to be that grandma.
yes.
And just to love them in a way and see who they are. Give them, you have to give kids structure as we need structure. We do need to find the right soil to lay down our roots and then grow our tree of knowledge and allow our branches to be flexible and flow in the wind. We do need that in life because we can't all be just air all the time. I'm air. So it took me a long time to actually harness the air and at least align
Yeah.
with the water. So we do need to teach them that kind of foundation of how to lay roots, but to know that their branches can reach up to the sky and be anything that they want. But they all need structure, like we need structure. When we're asking people to step into that artistry, there is a structure to it. There is an understanding of honing in and allowing, and where is the root and the substance of that. Otherwise, it just becomes airy fairy, and then people can't attach to it. There has to be something that connects it all together.
Yes, and I think a lot of people, a lot of poetry these days is lacking in the basic structures
Mm-hmm.
that help it become found. I kind of feel that my poetry is, even though a lot of it is, it's all, almost all of it is innovative forms and somewhat free forms, but it all is based. I've studied very hard traditional structures and traditional
Mm-hmm.
forms. So in the same way that Andy Warhol, he was a very good draftsman. He could draw a face that looks like a face, but
Yeah.
he went in another direction. He had
Yes.
that license to do that because he
Mm-hmm.
knew how to do the
Because he
other thing.
understood the structure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's important. I think it shows even
Yeah.
in the freest form poems in my book, they still feel like they're carefully constructed, even though they're quote unquote free form, free verse.
You need a foundation.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yes. Yeah. Because then it can grow roots in other people. But if it's just airy fairy, then suddenly, oh, that's nice and it's gone. Where is something
I
that they
know.
can grow?
Exactly. It has to be
Yeah.
solid, solidly
Hmm.
grounded. Exactly true.
Yeah.
Or else it just dissipates.
Yes. And we don't want things to dissipate. We want things to ignite. We want things to illuminate. We want things to invite. We want things to open you up and to see things that you had not seen before, feel things you hadn't felt, think things you hadn't thought of. It's all about that waking up and allowing. And if we don't allow ourselves to do that, then we're missing our point of being here. It is about exploration. It is about the love of life. Where's your love of life? You've got to find something you love
Yeah.
to do
Yes.
and hone it and nurture it and master it and share it because that is what your gift is. And it's here to illuminate a path.
Yeah, and it's so, I feel so grateful, Sarah, that you have invited me on your show with the idea that I can help lead people in that direction, because that's exactly the kind of
Mm-hmm.
person, that's the exact kind of experience I'm trying to offer to people with my book and with my poetry and with all my writing, is to help ignite them, illuminate their lives.
In their self-discovery.
Yeah, exactly,
So yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
I just feel, quite honored, it's the wrong word, but you know what I mean, grateful,
yes.
gracious.
But
Um,
the synergy
yes,
is there.
exactly.
So, you are the poet and I'm the revealer of the poet, but it's all about helping each other in on our own self-discovery, because the more we discover our own light or our own truth, our own meaningful purpose, the more we step into love, compassion, light, higher consciousness, and the more we actually become creative as an individual and as a humanity. So we actually owe it to ourselves to step into our own meaningful purpose and our own beautiful gift, because that is actually what's going to be the healer and the igniter of the world, not the other stuff.
Yeah, and it's the higher consciousness
Yes.
is the great phrase there. I because that's really kind of what I try to do with the poems. I try to immediately bring people up to a higher level of consciousness, and it's not so much high-mindedness
No, no.
or,
It's
or, or
awakening.
right. It's not high-mindedness or necessarily an ethical or moral way. It's just a higher way of seeing, bring one to a high. I do that with each individual reading as well. I try to
Hmm.
take people to a place of by the end, by the time they leave, I hope that they will
Have been uplifted.
right. They'll leave feeling elevated, and they'll
Yes.
think ultimately. I would hope that each reading would change their lives.
Hmm.
Reading the book would change their lives, or reading a
Hmm.
poem would change their lives. Just as would happen if now I'm not saying I succeed in that, um, but that's the goal. And
Yeah.
and people who do succeed at that, someone like Shakespeare. If
Hmm.
you walk away from Hamlet, either seeing it or reading it, or Macbeth, or any great poetry, and your life has changed. It's
Hmm.
changed forever.
It
You
stays with you. It
yeah,
becomes a compass.
yeah,
It opens up an awareness door.
and you can't really go back.
Unknow it.
No, you can't unknow
No, once you know what you know, there is no unknowing it. And that's, I always say when you're aware, you care. And when you care, you do something about it. But most of the time, we go aware around life unaware. And that awareness is that ignition as to who you are, what you're here to do, but also what's wrong, how we can put it right, how we can be collective, that awareness. And I think we need that awareness because that raises the consciousness. About 8 years ago, the universe gave me a saying: I'm going to shake you up to wake you up, for you to step up and change it up and grow up vibrationally, but also grow up as a human race. And I think that many people have already had heard that, like you have with your poetry. You heard the message. You're changing it up. You are stepping it up. You are inviting people already up to that higher consciousness. But for many others, there's a huge shakeup going up right now. And it's going to be very interesting to see those that will rise and shake it off,
Yeah,
or
I know.
those that will just stay, being shaken and never move beyond. And that's the invitation. What are we going to do?
I know. We're in such a time right now, such a historic time.
It is. But then I always say when things are at their darkest and when things seem hopeless, that is when the light is at its brightest. You've just got to open your eyes.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I have a very positive view of just like that. It's to me things are in the shaking up phase, but I
Mhm.
have all confidence that in the end things are going to be
I agree. It may
better.
get messy before it gets right, but
Yeah.
like just even with your poetry through the book or people listening to a reading, you're already igniting a consciousness. You're already making people aware, even of themselves, their own thoughts, and maybe a different way to look at something. It's all about that awareness awakening. And if they go away in a different feeling set or thought set than what they came to see you with, then that's already an elevation of consciousness.
Right. And exactly just the act of turning towards it
Yes.
is an elevation of consciousness.
A
And
shift. That's what we need.
right,
Little
just that.
shift.
Maybe there's something here. Okay.
Yes.
So you're
Uh-huh.
looking away from the havoc.
Yeah.
As you quoted when the podcast began, the havoc of a century. The was it Donald Ravel? What was his name? Um, yeah, Donald Ravel. Yeah, he said it makes me glad to be living in this havoc of a century.
Hmm.
It makes almost glad to be living in this havoc of a century. Just a wonderful compliment that he made of
In a lot of ways, we're going back to how it was, where we intuitively, instinctually knew things. But in other ways, we've gone away from that and gone into the falsehood of living, robotic or humanoid way of living. And now basically the heart and the soul are saying, come home. I can't help you until you come home. That
Yeah.
conscious needs to rise to a certain level, because when you're at that particular measurement as a scientist, they can measure the love vibration, people that live on a certain hertz, and you can't knowingly harm anyone else. To do so is to cause harm to yourself. And if we could get people up to that level, then we're there to aid each other, illuminate each other, not bring someone down, to make ourselves rise up. And we realize that. And we need the poets, we need the musicians, we need the people that will speak out, we need the people who are the shakers up.
Yes. And they're people. And
Yes.
it's not, technology is not going to do it. No matter how advanced it gets, it's not going to do it. It's not going to be able to heal.
No, what it can do is take away the mundane jobs so that the illuminating and the creative um, can happen. There's always a place for technology. I really do think that it's there for a reason. And again,
Mhm.
it all comes down to how we as humans use it. And that comes down to a higher consciousness. We use it consciously. If we use it in insecurity, we're going to use it in a way that is going to harm someone and ourselves. All comes back down to aware, right? What garbage
Yes.
am I carrying with me through generations? And what am I
Yeah.
imposing on others?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the worry is that we don't meet the ethical challenge we
Mm-hmm.
have dealing with the technology. And that's what I think that art and I think that art and poetry and music, things like that,
Of the door
uh,
openers.
right, will help us
Yeah.
reach that so that we have the insight to deal with these great forces in a proper manner,
Yeah.
in a measured manner.
Yes.
You know, I think that's part of it too. I think that's part of I think that's one benefit of the arts, the fine arts.
Yeah.
You know,
And it is what you see right now. It is the artists all across the board that are speaking out because they know their platform. They're speaking up, they're speaking out, and they're supporting each other. And this is why we need artists out there right now, because you're the ones that are making sense. You're comforting, you're illuminating, you're shedding light on what can be, not what is, and you're also inviting. I believe that inspiration is an invitation. When you inspire someone, it is an invitation for them to act upon that inspiration.
yes, and we're showing humanity, we're showing our humanity,
Yes,
and we're
yes,
showing you can't take it away. We're showing humanity,
yes,
and no matter what happens, that's got to be there,
yeah.
and it's got to be pronounced,
Mhm.
and we're the ones to do it. And I,
We
you know,
are. We are. And you're also inviting others to do it with your own illumination. And that's the thing. It's like,
right.
this is your role. This is your instrument in this orchestra of life, but you're inviting other instrumentalists to come and join this orchestra, because the more people that are in it, in their truth and in their expertise, the more illuminating the orchestra is going to be.
Right. And that's when it goes back to what we were saying about at that point, the person finds themselves as part of the orchestra.
Yes.
And that's just there's no feeling richer than that.
No,
And
no,
it
it's
doesn't
community.
require no, and it doesn't require financial wealth or
No.
anything. You're just in that orchestra. And once you see that, your life will be different in a very positive way. And also you'll become an inspiration. And
Yeah.
again, that's just by reading or listening or seeing. You then become an inspiration just by doing that.
Yeah.
Other people will be inspired by that.
Exactly. You know, I say that stepping up into that higher consciousness and being part of that orchestra is enrichment and abundance, because it's enrichment and abundance of positive energy and spirit. But I also say with these shows, and as I say, people reading your book or listening to any of your talks, listen, learn, then apply.
Yes,
Right?
that's
People forget the application. There's something
right,
you've learned here. Apply it to your life.
right.
Give it a try. See how it works for you. right? It isn't just about listen, learn, that's nice, next. It's about how do you apply it?
Yeah, don't just walk away and think, huh, that
Yeah,
was interesting, and now back to the grindstone.
exactly. No,
But
we don't want to, that's
no,
not the reason for
no.
it. Now, I know you've got some events coming up. This show, of course, it can be heard many years from now, but right now you've got some events coming up. So, what would those events be, Han?
Yeah, let
How do
me
people get hold of you? How do they buy your book? Please do share everything.
sure. So I have tomorrow, if the August 12th, if
Well, this is only going to come out next week, so
okay.
tomorrow won't work.
So, okay, I have two events tomorrow, but one of them is going to be on republished on YouTube,
Oh,
and
great.
it's Patsy Gill's Joy on Paper series. So if you just put Joy on Paper, Patsy Gill, and Patsy is spelled Patzi, new word Gill, Patsy Gill, Joy on Paper. I'm going to be doing a an interview with Patsy tomorrow, which will be accessible. Um, so that should be fun. I don't know what direction that's going to go in because it's going to be much different than yours,
That's
and
the
which
beauty
is
of it,
the
right?
beauty
Yep.
of it, of course.
Yep.
And then in my book, Bachelor Holiday, which is right here, you can see it. I have it marked off for some the for poetry reading. Is That's my book. My website is William Huhn, Huhn .com, just williamhuhn.com. And there's some examples of the poems there, and there's also if you look on the selections tab, there's some of the essays. There's one called the Triple Crown, which I think you'd love. Is my I have some things that were in Best American Essays and stuff, and you can just download those. And also the link is to there's a link if you feel like getting a copy of the book. There's a link there, and it's a great website. It's got fantastic graphics. It was really fun designing that too, by the way. It's beautiful. When you open it up, it's really cool. There's these stars going by. It's hard to explain, but anyway, it's a really neat website. And yeah, so that's where I can be reached. And also, if you want to reach out and say something to me, you can contact me through the website. I answer every email I get, and I'd love to hear from you. And if you read a poem and you want to say, this inspired me in some way, I'd love to hear that and discuss it
Yeah.
with you. It's great,
Yeah,
really, really
that
fun.
and the feedback just is showing you what people need and how you can provide it. It's not about accolation. It's about knowing that you're having an impact that really is beneficial. So you're also on Instagram, Will Huhn, Huhn. You're on Facebook, William Beckler Huhn,
Yeah,
and you're
Buckler, yeah,
also on
B-U-C-K, yeah, William Buckler Hume, Buckler, yeah,
and you're on X.com under Will. And
yes,
so people can read it. Of course, it's on Amazon as well. And I'm always saying that books are a great gift to give at any time. Someone's birthday, somebody feels needs picking up. Christmas is coming. It's a great time to kind of start your shopping and give the gift of poetry to people for Christmas. You're giving a gift of something that keeps on giving. A good book keeps on giving. It isn't you just close it and forget it. If it's a good book, it stays with you and it makes you question and it makes you want to go back and it makes you want to talk about it and it has an impact and that's what you want. And so when you've read a piece of poetry, don't go and read them all once, sit with one. How does it feel? Go back and then read another one once you've digested this. Let it penetrate your heart, soul, and spirit and really kind of show you how to feel because that's what it's about. He wants to ignite something in you. And you can't do that if you're just whizzing through. So slow down,
right. You can slow
smell the
down.
roses, a glass of wine in hand,
Yeah,
read a poem, read it out loud,
just
and
like
just
that.
let yourself feel it.
Tell your significant other, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
It's just, and they'll say, oh, interesting. It's a fun conversation.
Exactly. Ignite that conversation that we keep talking about, which is so important. And what you are sharing is an illumination, a different perspective, an invitation. But that invitation is also not only a conversation with others, but a conversation within ourselves. And
Yeah,
you
very
do
well
not
said.
be afraid to have that conversation within. It's been dying to converse with you for so long. So please
Yeah,
open up and pay attention to the inner voice.
I love that. A conversation within. I love that. I love it because it's so mysterious because
Hmm.
there's more than one voice there, but
Oh, yeah,
they're all your voice.
they
You
are.
know,
And they've all
so-
got something to say. So give it
right.
space and time,
Yeah,
ignite it with a good poem, digest it, and see what voice it brings up. What
right.
does it want you to know?
Yes, what does it want you to know? Exactly.
Well, this has been wonderful, William. Thank you so much for sharing and taking this journey and being honest and true to who you are and what your gift is. You know, you've got the sensible hat on, but you've allowed your divine hat to play itself out, whether through music or through poetry, and be true to who you are and what you're here to do. So thank you so much for sharing and keep writing. Keep writing. There's
Yeah.
obviously more in you.
Oh yeah, no, thank you very much. And I feel the same way about you. You have a passion, you have a vision, and it's coming through in your podcast. And I commend you for following that vision. And it's just been wonderful talking with you and a wonderful conversation. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to you and to all the listeners who are listening right now. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you from all of us. And thank you. And the thing is, when you do find your calling and you are at home with it, you do it for free. You do it, through sickness, through anything. You do it because you're compelled to do it because you know that's what you're here for. And you know why you're doing it, and whom you're doing it for. And so therefore you get up and do it. Right? It's a
Yeah,
no-brainer.
it would be harder not to do it.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. You'll be
Yeah,
denying yourself something, but you can't do. So
exactly
that's
right.
when that knocking on that door comes. Open that door, please, and explore and see where it takes you. Thank you so
Okay.
much, William.
Thank you
It's been
so.
an
Okay.
absolute delight having you here.
Thank you very much. You have a nice evening. Thank
You
you.
too. And to everyone else out there, please get the book, read the poetry. Let it sit with you, please. Let it sit with you. Be present with it. Be present with the voice that it ignites in you. And don't forget, it does make a wonderful gift for someone, whether someone's going through something or whether you've got birthdays or you're planning for Christmas, whatever it is, it makes a great gift. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.